SEC Media Days, so I apologize if the quality is not, is not as good as it normally is. We might be buffering at moments, but I wanted to make sure that I hopped on our Wednesday. Our normal availability is normally 11 a.m. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, but with the SEC Media Days this week, we had to kind of be flexible. We had to adjust some things. We've been boots on the ground, trying to get some intel, trying to get some information for you for this season, just so we can go into, our analysis and our prediction informed. We're not guessing. We're not, speculating for no reason. Got a couple of topics that I'm going to break down here today. I'll give you a layout. First things first, we're going to talk about what Greg Sankey, the SEC commissioner, is talking about in regards to another expansion. I know we just got 16 teams. We just got Texas and Oklahoma all nice and then eased into their new conference, but we're already talking about a potential addition again, so we'll break that one down for you. And Kalen DeBoer had his first debut at SEC Media Days. Nick Saban was in attendance, so that was a little interesting to see, kind of a passing of the torch, so to speak. We'll get into that one later. Texas had their media day. Sarkisian got his welcome to the SEC, and Greg Sankey made a funny joke. He said that you had 3 of the 4 coaches available or at the media days between Kalen DeBoer, Nick Saban, and Steve Sarkisian that were in the college football playoffs last year, which is pretty interesting. It just goes to show the level of competition that is in the SEC. Sure, Nick Saban's not there anymore, but the other 2 coaches are there, and the program that Kalen's taken over is, still strong and still going to be respected and has high potential. We'll dive into that one. Plus, another interview on the horizon for the Verdant Verdict. We'll go ahead and break that one down real quick before we get any further. I wanted to shout out Happy Dad. Thanks for joining the team. We've been promoting the seltzer, the best seltzer. It's low in sugar, gluten-free. Get them at Albertsons, at Rouse's, at Walmart. But I wanted to plug that here real quick before we dive into the meat and potatoes, if you will, of the show. And of course, we're going to do an LSU update here at the end. But let's start off with the Florida State topic. Greg Sankey made a funny joke, and he was just saying when Georgia missed the college football playoff last year, no one was protesting it. No one was jumping up and down, screaming, and hanging fake national championship banners, as you saw in Tallahassee. He was kind of just poking fun at not necessarily the legitimacy of the program, but just the overall standing of it. And I guess what he's getting at is, hey, guys, we're not thrilled, or we're not really exactly looking forward to getting you in our conference. Now, that doesn't say Florida State is never going to be in the SEC, but, if you're going to leave the ACC, you better have a plan. And if the Big 12 and the SEC are part of that plan, it might be better for Florida State to just, stay where they are, figure it out. It might be too far gone. But if you ask me, a recent expansion will probably mitigate a future expansion, especially when, for 3 years you're planning adding these 2 teams. Now, you've got a whole other loophole that you'll have to figure out. Also, Clemson is potentially wanting to join in. So, you're not just adding 1. You're going to have to add 2. You're going to have to keep it an even number. So, you're going to have to, go down that whole rabbit hole of getting these teams ready, getting their schedules aligned, getting the universities up to par. And, Clemson and Dabo Swinney and Mike Norvell and Florida State aren't far off of an SEC powerhouse. Many people would argue Florida State will probably be top 5 programs this year. Now, it's neither here nor there, but a program, we'll kind of switch to talking about that I think can prove a lot of doubters wrong and that can honestly turn some heads. Alabama. We've been harping on this Alabama train for quite some time just because I don't see a world where Nick Saban retires and then that program just crumbles. And Kalen DeBoer mentioned that. He also mentioned the fact that the mindset of the program has not changed. The preparation's still elite. Jalen Milroe specifically, growing as a passer, and he can't be beat in the facility, people are saying. You could try to outwork him. You could try to show up earlier than him. You could try to go at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock. Sun's not up. Guess what? It's not going to work. And it reminds me of somebody. And we've made this comparison once before, and I don't want to keep making it. I don't want to keep, aggravating people, but I just want to be on tape and just say, Jalen Milroe, he reminds me of Jaden Daniels. And then we're talking about showing up early, trying to build off of what you've done last year. And then also let's look at the criticism that Milroe has experienced. Oh, he's a running back. Oh, he can't pass. This, that, the third. We've heard it before. Don't rule out Jalen Milroe. He's got that high ceiling. He could grow and, he can fulfill his potential. And Nick Saban was talking about the impact that he has on offenses, and he's not exactly a lights out thrower like Carson Beck, who can just give you 300 all in the air every game. But I mean, if you're taking the ball, running at 30 yards, running for 3 touchdowns as you did against LSU, you're a game changer. You have that X factor. You have that big ability that I think is going to be able to draw in a lot of success for this program. Plus, let's just put the cherry on top. Kalen DeBoer is not a bad coach. Kalen DeBoer was just in the national championship. Did he lose? Yes. But we love saying the championship rub. You've heard it. You probably can memorize the line and say it with us at this point, but you got to get your ass kicked by the cream of the crop to be able to eventually get into that tier. You've got to get beaten. You got to get bruised. You got to get battered. And I feel like Alabama, they might have something here with Kalen DeBoer. They might have a system. Saban left. It's not like he's inheriting a program that was a dumpster fire, like maybe a Coach Kelly when he came to LSU and he had to rebuild everything. You're not doing that. It's not an instant rebuild. Plus, it's kind of a credit to how they've been able to recruit so quickly in the SEC. Kalen DeBoer got a lot of skepticism on if he was going to be able to do it and how Alabama would be able to fare once you saw everyone exit, mass exodus when Nick Saban retires. But Coach DeBoer credited the great support system that they have around them for why the recruiting is what it is, why it's doing what it's doing. And I think it'll continue to get better. I don't think you see a 12-win season for them. I don't think they potentially go undefeated like you could see with a Nick Saban's Alabama. But they're going to float around the 10-win mark. They're going to give LSU a tough time in Tiger Stadium, and they're going to be a team that you're going to have to watch in the SEC. Stay tuned for the end of the show. We'll break down our SEC teams, in ranks and what we voted on, if you will. But real quick, we'll talk about Texas because Coach Sarkisian took the podium today. He got welcomed to the SEC. He got his little moment where he gets on his soapbox and he just gets to relay the message, if you will. One of the first messages that he took to the podium and said caught me off guard, made my mouth kind of drop, made me wonder, hey, Texas fans, do you have your guy? Look, I'm going to get battered for saying this, but he kind of made a mention just saying he wished they informed him before he took the job that they planned on entering the Southeastern Conference. Initially, in the Big 12, he's not necessarily content with it, but he thought that was going to be, his speed for quite some time. And within the 3-year span, boom, here they are at the highest level of college football, playing against the most competitive teams in the most competitive scheduling. And it's not saying that Coach Sarkisian kind of wanted to shy away from it, but it is saying that the mindset of, oh, we're ready for it, it'll make you better, like a Coach Kelly or anybody would say. It's not here right now, and that might worry some Texas fans. Real quick, we got a guest coming on the show. Bebe, say something to the fans. She don't want to look at the camera, but we got our dog Bebe sitting out here in the yard with us. She's talking some Texas football with us. She wants to know what's good. But let's get back to business. Sarkisian did address Arch Manning and his development and just the overall the waiting game that he's playing. A lot of people are confused. It's 2 years that you haven't seen Arch Manning take the field. I didn't think he'd wait this long. I didn't think that Texas would be able to hold him. Well, guess what? The Manning family wants development. The Manning family wants to see Arch in a successful spot, of course, but they want him to blossom. They don't want him to just get thrown to the wolves, chase an NIL bag, chase right now, when you've got something literally sitting right in front of you. And this could be, compared to the Garrett Nussmeier situation that took place at LSU. Garrett Nussmeier, talented quarterback, had a lot of teams pulling him in all kind of different directions. Guess what? He stayed put, and he waited his turn, waited his time, developed, and now whenever he gets to be under the lights for LSU, whether it be week 1 against USC or, week 9 or 10 against Alabama, I think that this type of path, it's non-traditional now, but it might be your best one. A lot of people are confused. Wow, 2 years in and you don't see Arch Manning. Guess what? Maybe he wasn't ready to play within 2 years. Remember the first spring game? Everybody tries to find a million things wrong with him, but then you watch the kid develop on the sideline under a quarterback named Quinn Ewers, who's rumored to be a Heisman candidate, the number 1 draft pick, this, that, and the third, best quarterback in college potentially. I mean, I feel like sitting behind him really isn't the end of the world. But Texas, yeah, the Sarkisian quote just off the rip kind of rubbed me a little bit of the wrong way, just because it seemed like he was like, oh, well, the SEC play, at first I wasn't expecting it. I mean, dude, you're supposed to be bringing UT back to legitimacy. You're supposed to be a perennial powerhouse. You're supposed to be the top dog in recruiting. You're supposed to be ready for the SEC. You're supposed to be saying, bring it on. It just means more. Great. I would rather have my 4th year of success start where it means more, just so I'm at the pinnacle of it all, with all the eyes on me, with all the lights on me, with all the competitive juices flowing, if you will. But real quick, I'm going to give you my 4 big takeaways from SEC Media Days. Next week sometime, when we're back in studio, when we're back in Baton Rouge on LSU's campus, I'll do a full breakdown. We'll probably do a team-by-team breakdown each show, each day. Monday, Wednesday, Fridays at 11, by the way. Hit the subscribe button so you don't miss it. But 4 big takeaways, real quick, give you a little glimpse, a little preview. I think Georgia's still the top dog. Just being able to see guys like Carson Beck, Kirby Smart, just be calm, cool, and collected, and just have that poise. You know what I'm saying? They're in a bit of a situation where, last year they didn't get their credit. They're going for a 3rd national championship in a row last season. They lose only 1 game, and they're left out of the college football playoff. Like Coach Greg Sankey said, we're not going to harp on it. We're not going to be upset. We're not going to be like, oh, well, they should be in and complain. No, Georgia is just going to be able to learn and grow from this. Coach Kirby did say, though, we're not going to motivate ourselves off of the failure, just as we're not going to motivate ourselves on the success. If you get caught up in we just won a natty, we're going to go ahead and get right back into it. No, you've got to have that hunger, that fire, that drive. Each year is judged by the same standard that you have. Georgia has a standard of excellence that each player must uphold. And it doesn't matter what happened the year prior, because like Kobe Bryant says, in the realm of doubt, it doesn't matter if you win or lose. The next day, you're still going to have to get up and do it all over again anyway. If you win, great, tie your shoes and go win again. If you lost, it's okay. You got a new day. You're going to be able to win. So, yeah, I think Georgia's mindset, standard, everything is really just where it needs to be. They got the depth. They've got the experience. I'm just going to label them top dog, period, point blank. 2, LSU's polarizing year 3 takes. You've got 2 sides of the fence. You got our side that we are, we've planted our stake in. We damn near built us a little, like a property on this side of the fence, is that LSU's going to hit the ground running and they're going to be successful. They could start 5-0. They could start 6-0. They could turn a lot of heads, climb in the rankings. They'll be a top 5 team early on when it's all said and done. And they can get more than double-digit wins this season. I think that the offense will not miss a beat. Sure, you're going to replace 3 first-round picks. Guess what? LSU has first-round picks almost every single year. You're always replacing them. You're always having the next man up. This offensive line is something I would really love to build around. If you're having a piecemealed offensive line, you're in a different boat. But the fact that you've got 2 of the top 2 tackles, number 1 and number 2, both on your side, both on opposite sides of each other, quite frankly, just bolstering that line, I think that it's a recipe for success. Now, the polarizing side of this is that you have the side of the fence, the opposite side, the side we're not engaging with too much, but they think LSU could fall flat in their face. The defense could be hell in a handbasket once again. The DBs could be rough, this, that, and the third. You got a lot of worries for LSU in year 3, and that's one of my big takeaways. You're either on one side of the fence or the other. You think LSU is going to be successful in year 3 under Coach Kelly, as his career has, laid out for him. Cincinnati, Notre Dame, wherever it may be, Coach Kelly's year 3 has been pretty pivotal. And we've talked about it on the show, and several other people have as well. But, you got, like I said, 2 sides of the fence. Some sides are bought in on it, some sides aren't. It really just depends on your outlook on the program. And I feel like I said, mine is they're going to be able to build and grow. 3rd, Kalen DeBoer's taking the torch from Nick Saban. He's running with it. He's lighting the path with it. He's trailblazing. Whatever you want to say about Kalen DeBoer and his time at Alabama, you go ahead and say it. But I think what I've seen from him and just how he's handled this whole process is pretty good. He could be an elite level coach when it's all said and done. It's really early on in his career now, but you've almost put a ring on your finger as of last year. And if you would have asked me, what situation will Washington be in? You see Will Rogers transfer. You see, all of these moves, whether it be out of the Pac-12 or what have you, and you wonder, how are they going to handle this? How is Washington going to handle the rebuild when they lose Rome Odunze? When they lose Michael Penix? And I just don't know if they would have done it well. So Kalen DeBoer got into a no-brainer situation where you get offered the Alabama coaching job, and sure, it's daunting, and you're going to have to fill the shoes of Nick Saban. But like he said today, there's no other Nick Saban. There's only one Nick Saban, and he doesn't have to worry about that. He's just got to coach football. He's got to keep it simple. he's got to just go out and do the thing that he has done his entire career, and which led him to the national championship as a Pac-12 Washington champion. Lastly, final takeaway, Nick Saban dropped his, not necessarily his favorite assistant coach list, but he ranked his assistant coaches, and he told Kirby, you were the best assistant coach I've ever had. That's number one. And then the reason that this conversation was even brought up was because Lane Kiffin and Kirby Smart have been having like a little chain text that they would go back and forth on whenever Coach Saban would send them something. They were kind of just like, happy and gleeful that Coach Saban's even texting them in general, because, apparently he hadn't texted much throughout his career, just too busy collecting the national championship rings. But Nick Saban responded to that and just, gave Kirby his credit where credit is due, and kind of talked about how he's gotten Georgia's program to where it is right now. But when he ranked his second coach, it was not Lane Kiffin. It was Mr. Steve Sarkisian. He put Lane Kiffin third, and Kirby Smart kind of made a joke saying, oh boy, somebody's going to be quite upset about that one. And Lane Kiffin, I thought that was hilarious. Probably one of the funnier things we've seen from SEC Media Day coverage. And by the way, a quick side note, really cool to see Nick Saban alongside us at Media Days. Really cool to watch him on his set. We posted a few reels from it, and go ahead and check those out. It's cool watching him gel into this role, and he kind of talked about it. It makes him feel like he's still a part of the football world. He still can prepare for the teams. He still can get those competitive juices flowing. He still can be a part of the program, if you will. He's got an office at Alabama. He's traveling all over the place. He's still busy. He's at the ESPYs in Los Angeles. He's in Dallas right now. He's about to fly out and take care of some more things. But it's good to see Coach Saban busy, and I'm sure whenever you're at that level, that status, and you've been doing something for that long, retiring will probably put you in such a confused, foggy mental state where it's almost good that he has something to do, something to look forward to, something to constantly prepare for and make him better. He's probably nervous on camera. He's probably growing in that realm. He hasn't really been nervous for something in a long time, I'm imagining, and he could be nervous before every game. Never know, but what I'm getting at is just that he's got a new challenge that he can conquer. And I mean, if you're Nick Saban, what other thing do you want rather than a challenge? Real quick, we'll plug some coverage that we have coming for you. On Saturday, we'll be interviewing the Honey Badger, Tyrann Mathieu. We're going to be going back to the Heart of the Badger camp. Really cool, get to watch him give back to his community in New Orleans and just bring some kids along to a free football skills camp that he puts on annually. This time it'll be at the Saints facility. It'll be really cool to watch him do his thing out there. Honey Badger's always a pretty cool LSU legend to keep up with. We got our guy Baxter checking in on the stream. Big Bax. What's up, man? We got the dogs bombarding us today. But we do have some college football 25 content coming for you as well. My overall assessment of the game, we've played it for a while, and I think first things first, LSU started 8-0 in my road to glory. So that, and we're talking about 5-0, 6-0. Hell, you might go 8-0. And if you go 8-0, we're going to be screaming from the rooftops that a national championship will be hung in Tiger Stadium. But, just the game, it seems like it's not a clone, not a Madden clone. You're actually in there with the free-moving field mechanics. You've got the field sense. You've got the passing game tweaks, if you will. It's a pretty interesting aspect to it. But yeah, Tyrann Mathieu interview coming at the end of this week. We're going to make a separate channel where we're going to do our gaming content, where we're going to live stream the game, do our Madden interviews with players. We'll kind of just separate the vert and verdict content just so y'all don't have to have, a bunch of CFB stuff flooding your way. But also, fall camp will be approaching. Within the next 2 weeks, I'd say, we'll be back in practice. We'll be back giving you the practice highlights, the practice updates, just everything that we gave you throughout the spring. It'll all be back here as LSU puts the iron to iron, if you will. Iron sharpening iron here in fall camp, getting ready for that USC matchup in Las Vegas. I think it'll be pretty good. Real quick, though, before we wrap this stream up, before we wrap this show up, I wanted to talk about the SEC order that we voted on at SEC Media Days. We did our preseason list and we did our rankings. We had to put together something. We had to give some flowers where flowers were due. The number one team that we voted on is the Georgia Bulldogs. I had to give Kirby Smart his credit, and I had to, put them at the top of the list just because of what they've been able to do. I don't think that you can really not put them there just because they got the depth. They've got the veteran coach. They've got really everything that you need to be a perennial powerhouse. And it'll be hard to see them, Oh, sorry, I didn't know that I turned my camera here. All right, back on. Sorry. But yeah, number one team in the SEC finishing this year, I would believe it would be Georgia. They don't have that tough schedule. They don't have that anything really kicking their ass to be able to put them in a tough spot. Yeah, they don't have Brock Bowers. Yeah, you don't have Ladd McConkey. You do get ETN, however, though. And I think that one's gonna go underrated. Yeah, he was a little, big boost to Florida's offense last year, but under Billy Napier, under Graham Mertz, you don't get to see the wrinkles develop just because of how much you're using him, just because of how much the focal point was on him. Now you put him in a situation where you can disguise him in the backfield. You've got a pocket passer that could potentially win a Heisman. You've got a 5-year quarterback with a bunch of experience. He knows how to use him. He knows how to put him in and out of a scheme. I think Georgia's going to have a little bit of increased weaponry, at least in that aspect. Number 2, SEC order of finish, I'll put LSU. Call me biased if you want, but I think that they're in a little bit of a situation where they can up the speed. They can up the ante, if you will. A lot of people have questions on whether or not they're going to replace the offensive firepower that they lost with Malik Nabers, with Brian Thomas, with Jaden Daniels. But stepping right up to the plate, you got Garrett Nussmeier, who we'll say one more time. I mean, we've said it a million times this offseason, but he's not your run-of-the-mill first-year starter. He's been in a program under multiple quarterbacks, under multiple coaches, not to mention probably one of the best coaches he's had in his life. His father, coaching for the Philadelphia Eagles, he's had tutelage. And Nick Saban kind of made a joke at SEC Media Days how when he first met Nussmeier was about waist high, running around the sidelines kind of making trouble while Mr. Doug was coaching. But I think just kind of underestimating Nussmeier will be a lot of people's mistake, simply because 2 things. One, everyone wants to see him replace Jaden Daniels and fill Jaden Daniels' shoes when all he has to do is be a successful quarterback. You don't have to be Jaden Daniels. You don't have to get a Heisman. You don't have to rush for 100 yards. Second, a lot of people are talking about the mobility, and everyone wants to just act like because he can't run for 85 yards consecutively that he's not mobile. He is mobile. If you watch his film during the Georgia SEC championship game where he got subbed in, he's running around like Joe Burrow in the pocket, being elusive, getting away from defenders, stretching the play out, being able to find a short field receiver, a long field receiver. He can just extend the play. And I think the beauty of what Jaden Daniels brought us is if plan A or your initial primary read goes to hell in a handbasket, you can make something shake. You can create an audible on the fly. You can do something where whenever shit hits the fan, the coaches, the fans, the players, your overall team is going to be able to trust you. And I think Nussmeier is going to be able to fit that bill, slide right into that. Number 3, we got Alabama. I know people are wondering where the burnt orange are on this list. I'll advise you to stay patient, because I don't think Texas will be able to hit the ground running in the SEC like a lot of people are expecting. And I also don't think a lot of people are giving Alabama their credit like they should be getting, because, like we said, it's not like Kalen DeBoer is rebuilding an entirely different program. He's taken the keys from Nick Saban, and sure, it doesn't feel like his car yet, but I just think it could probably be, when it all is said and done, one of the best coaching swaps in history. I mean, you're going to a program that has not only world-class facilities, world-class staff, but world-class depth and a world-class system that you could kind of, as he said, go into and take notes from. He's not just going in there and flipping everything on his head and making it the Kalen DeBoer way. He's going to coaches, he's going to players, and he's talking about what Saban did and just overall, how to not necessarily keep the program the same, but to ease that transition so it's not as, as rough and as kind of polarizing as it could potentially be when you see a new coach come in with a new staff, and also the mass exodus in the transfer portal. You kind of have a new team overnight. Yet in this instance, with the way he's handled the turnover, Alabama's kind of keeping their core pieces together, and you see that as a direct reflection of their success on the recruiting world. Recruits, transfers, and all these big-time blue chips would not select Alabama as their commitment or their signing day destination if they didn't see the potential or they didn't have the belief in Alabama like people had in previous years. And I'm gonna end this last little soapbox with Kalen DeBoer said it best. There's only one Nick Saban. You don't have to be Nick Saban, just like we said with Garrett Nussmeier. You don't have to be Jaden Daniels. Stick to your process, do what you do, and create a new level of history at that program. It's still a good program. You're still in a good situation, and I feel like he'll be able to have a little more success. We put 4th. Here's the burnt orange, UT. I think Texas could potentially float around the top 5. It's all indicative on how they transition into this level of play. Sure, they've been playing elite competition, and people are all gonna kind of reference the Sarkisian takeover. But I just think there's going to be a couple of moments, just like with Oklahoma, where you're going to have some head scratchers. You're going to have some real proving and testing moments for this team, and they're kind of going to get a little bit of fire early on in week 2, playing the defending national champions in Michigan, and then of course they're going to get to play the Tide, and they're going to be in some situations where they could lose. They could have it all crumble. I keep flipping the camera. Sorry about that. The glare on the sun. It's kind of hard to see. But 5th, we got Mizzou, the Mizzou Tigers. And I know a lot of people, what? Mizzou, number 5? Coach Eli Drink, man, he put on a show at Media Days. And not to mention Luther Burden III. I'll go out on a limb and tell you that right now, Luther Burden III will be your best wide receiver in the SEC. We talked to him a little bit, and what we gathered from him was an overall confidence and moxie that you need at that position. You can't be a wide receiver who's really timid and who isn't brash and bold. You've got to have somebody who's uber confident and thinks that they're going to be able to take over. And quite frankly, he would. I'm sure you wouldn't expect it otherwise, but he's going to put Mizzou at the top of the SEC. And I think pairing that with Brady Cook, just kind of seeing what Brady Cook had to say throughout Media Days, was pretty enlightening. And you would think that Mizzou would be in a lot different situation because of all the changes and just all the things that have not necessarily hit them recently, but it's kind of an underdog, if you will. But I will put them at number 5. I'm glad we got this stream going. I'm glad we got to get some content out for you. On Friday, we'll be driving back from Texas. We'll be heading to Baton Rouge. It might be toward the evening, so I don't know if we're going to do a stream on the phone in the afternoon or if we're going to wait till the nighttime to do something on our main setup. But stay tuned. We're going to be going live Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 11 a.m. next week. We're going to resume our schedule that we will continue to stay consistent on, because it's the only way you take over. Verdict takeover. We've been warning y'all. But College Football 25 content coming. Tyrann Mathieu interview on Saturday. Thank y'all for tuning into the Verdict. Shout out Happy Dad. Y'all have a good one.